Good day, you're watching the India Live, India's Voice to the World. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Hurricane Milton again intensifies to Category 5 as Florida braces for a storm of the century. Thousands flee as Biden urges residents to evacuate. West Asia remains on edge. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warns Lebanon of destruction like Gaza. Japan's PM Ishiba set to dissolve parliament ahead of October 27th snap elections, relying on a divided, fragmented opposition to regain power. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump trade barbs in media as the campaigning enters the final stretch of intensely close U.S. presidential polls. Russian forces capture key villages in eastern Ukrainian town of Toretsk. Zelensky wants missiles, faster results on battlefield. Let's begin with West Asia conflict first. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a direct appeal to urge the Lebanese people to throw out Hezbollah and avoid destruction and suffering like we see in Gaza.
You have an opportunity that hasn't existed in decades. An opportunity to take care of the future of your children and grandchildren. You have an opportunity to save Lebanon before it falls into the abyss of a long war that will lead to destruction and suffering like we see in Gaza.
Well, Netanyahu's appeal on Tuesday came as Israel expanded its ground invasion against Hezbollah by sending thousands more troops into a new zone in southwest Lebanon. Elsewhere, Hezbollah's fighters launched barrages of rockets towards the Israeli port city of Haifa for the third consecutive day, injuring several people. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, Israeli military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari claimed that the forces have killed 50 other Hezbollah fighters, but Nasrallah's successor, Hashim Saifuddin's death yet to be confirmed. He added that the IDF was examining the results of the operation.
Adata, until now we can confirm that in the strikes more than 50 terrorists, among them are 6 senior commanders. This is a moral strike, operational and hard for the Hezbollah terrorists. We see it now in the fighting in the north, and in parallel this is the operation that we are continuing, the ground operation against the southern infrastructure that is spread across the border.
Well, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller has indicated that Hezbollah is on defensive mode and calls for a ceasefire. During his briefing, Miller said that Israel's offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon has prompted a renewed bid by some leading Lebanese politicians to fill a 2-year-long presidential vacuum, an effort to revive the paralyzed state as it grapples with an escalating conflict.
So for a year, you had the world calling for this ceasefire. You had Hezbollah refusing to agree to one. And now that Hezbollah is on the back foot and is getting battered, suddenly they've changed their tune and want a ceasefire. I think it's not surprising given the situation they find themselves in.
And moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict now, Russia's defense ministry said that its forces had taken control of 2 settlements in eastern Ukraine on Tuesday. It said the villages of Zalota and Navya and Zorayan Parishe has been brought under Russian control. The 2 villages lie to the north and to the south of the town of Kurakhove, one of the focal points of military activity on the eastern front. This is the latest gains in their drive to secure the Donbas region, while Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukrainian forces were maintaining sufficient pressure on Russian troops in Russia's Kursk region. And further, Zelensky said Ukraine needed to secure and deploy advanced missiles and to achieve faster results with them on the battlefield. He said a meeting with top commanders had been devoted to the development of domestic weapons supplies, including drones, electronic warfare, and above all, deploying missiles that would reap rapid benefits in the battlefield. And Russian strikes on Ukraine's northeastern city of Kharkiv killed at least 2 people and injured more than 30 on Tuesday. The local police reported that 2 people were killed in a park near a lake, adding 2 more were wounded. Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Terekov said a civilian production facility had also been hit. A new NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said Ukraine could be facing its toughest winter since the conflict on Tuesday.
Must and will do more to help Ukraine. Russia continues to carry out massive strikes against Ukraine's critical energy infrastructure. Ukraine could be facing its toughest winter since the full-scale invasion began.
Well, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is set to dissolve the parliament on Wednesday ahead of October 27 snap elections, banking on his political journey and a fragmented opposition to lead his party to victory. Ishiba's Liberal Democratic Party has governed Japan almost uninterrupted for decades and is almost certain to be re-elected. Ishiba replaced Fumio Kishida, whose government had suffered from record low approval ratings due to partly to slush fund scandals that stoked distrust in the LDP and voter discontent over rising prices. Over the weekend, Ishiba announced that the LDP will not endorse some disgraced party members implicated in the political funding scandal in the upcoming election. And as US elections are just a few weeks ahead, a recent opinion poll again says Harris ahead of Trump. The debate in the mind of voters is strong leader versus change leader. A poll from Siena College and the New York Times out on Tuesday highlighted the deadlock, finding Harris ahead of a Republican rival by 49% to 46%. However, the new poll gave Trump the edge on who is the stronger leader, but crucially revealed that registered voters see Harris as the change candidate. In the 7 battleground states seen as likely to determine the election, the race is even tighter. In between, Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump exchanged barbs over the radio on Tuesday as they reached out to the few remaining undecided voters in the final stretch of an election seen as one of the closest in modern U.S. history. Harris is blaming Trump to be admirer of dictators, while Trump is declaring Harris as low intelligence person. Meanwhile, a book published in USA indicts Trump for sending COVID test kits to Russian President Vladimir Putin. And Hurricane Milton takes aim at Florida's battered Gulf Coast as an enormous Category 5 storm on Tuesday, triggering massive traffic jams and fuel shortages already. Hurricane Milton is being dubbed as extremely dangerous storm of the century. Officials have ordered over 1 million people to flee before it slams into the Tampa Bay area late on Wednesday or early on Thursday. Milton threatens a stretch of Florida's densely populated west coast that is still reeling from the devastating Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. A direct hit on the bay would be the first since 1921, that is more than a century. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor warned people against riding out the storm, calling Helene a mere wake-up call. Well, the World Meteorological Organization has warned Hurricane Milton is expected to grow in size before landfall, posing an extremely serious threat to Florida. The WMO has also predicted fluctuations in the strength of the Milton, adding that it is forecast to remain an extremely dangerous hurricane throughout the landfall. The WMO spokesperson Claire Nallis said in addition to Milton, there are currently 2 other hurricanes in the Atlantic at the moment, Leslie and Kirk.
Milton, according to the latest forecasts from the US National Hurricane Center, will likely make landfall in Florida Wednesday night, local time. The maximum sustained winds at the moment are 250 kilometers an hour. And this is a powerful Category 4. Milton sort of reached Category 5 yesterday, and the National Hurricane Center is saying that, fluctuations in the strength are likely, but whatever, regardless, Milton, and I quote, is forecast to remain an extremely dangerous hurricane through landfall in Florida.
Also, U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday urged those who have been ordered to leave before Hurricane Milton makes landfall in Florida to evacuate now. He also added that it was a matter of life and death.
Importantly, I've urged everyone.
Meanwhile, personnel from the U.S. Army
to listen to local officials and follow safety instructions. You all have been reporting on the highways, shoulders being opened, everybody's heading out. And if you're under evacuation orders, you should evacuate now. You should have already evacuated. It's a matter of life and death, and that's not hyperbole. It's a matter of life and death.
Meanwhile, personnel from the U.S. Army have arrived in Marshall, North Carolina to help residents clear debris from homes and businesses left in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Relief efforts continue across much of the U.S. Southeast after Helene made landfall in Florida on September 26th. The storm killed over 200 people and caused billions of dollars in damage across 6 states. As recovery continues, several U.S. states are now bracing for the arrival of Hurricane Milton, which on Tuesday headed towards Florida's Gulf Coast. More than 1 million residents have been ordered to evacuate before the storm reaches the Tampa Bay area. And now shifting focus to Bolivia, where wildfires have smashed the records to be the worst in the country's history, scorching an area the size of Iceland. According to figures released by the non-governmental organization, nearly 7 million hectares in Santa Cruz have burned out of a national total of 10 million. The fires are largely the result of slash and burn practices used by industrial agriculture to clear land for large-scale farming and cattle pastures. Bolivia's government declared a national disaster last week after demands from local authorities, community organizations and citizens for more forceful intervention. Authorities issued evacuation orders and warnings for residents in the area also. And Mexican lawmakers held a minute of silence to honor the memory of slain Chilpancingo's mayor Alejandro Arcos Catalan on Tuesday. Alejandro Arcos was killed on October 6, just 6 days after he took office as mayor of the city of Chilpancingo in the state of Guerrero. The federal government disclosed that he had traveled alone to an out-of-town meeting before his death. The Minister of Security said the investigation is still underway. The gruesome act happened just days before new President Claudia Sheinbaum unveiled her security strategy aimed at combating violent crime. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. We'll give you a roundup of the Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir election results as BJP and JK National Conference emerge as the largest party respectively. RBI's October monetary policy meeting from today. And in Women's T20 World Cup, defending champions Australia beat New Zealand by 60 runs, top in Group A. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana and on to some business news now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be travelling to Lao PDR on 10th and 11th of October to attend the 21st ASEAN-India Summit and the 19th East Asia Summit. ASEAN leaders and other partners have already started arriving in Vientiane for the 44th and 45th ASEAN Summit. Ahead of the main summit, ASEAN foreign ministers met on Tuesday in Vientiane, where Myanmar and other regional topics remain a high point of discussion.
Foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations meet ahead of the 44th ASEAN Summit in Vientiane from 9th to 11th of October. Ahead of the summit, foreign ministers and delegates from Southeast Asian nations joined in a meeting in Vientiane on Tuesday, stressing that the region's concerted effort is much needed amid the current geopolitical climate.
Our meeting is held when the region and the world continue to face with rapidly changing and complex geopolitical and geoeconomic landscape that presents both opportunity and challenges. ASEAN concerted effort is needed to respond proactively and effectively to these challenges with a view to maintaining and promoting regional and global peace, stability and prosperity, as well as to maintaining ASEAN relevance and centrality as a primary driving force in evolving regional architecture.
Permanent Secretary at the Myanmar Foreign Ministry, Ong Kor Mo, is attending the meeting as the country is set to send a representative to the regional summit for the first time in 3 years. Indonesia hosted talks on the Myanmar conflict last week involving ASEAN, the European Union and the United Nations, as well as numerous anti-junta groups. Malaysia takes over as ASEAN chair after the summit, and Foreign Minister Mohammed Hassan said Jakarta meeting showed that talks must involve all parties in Myanmar.
The takeaway is that we have to really approach everybody in Myanmar. Okay? And Myanmar also has to listen to ASEAN. They have to abide to the ASEAN Charter because it's part of ASEAN. And they are also the part of signatory of the 5-point consensus. So let's put all of it together. We want to see this so-called crisis, atrocities in Myanmar also to stop.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be travelling to Vientiane from 10th to 11th of October. During his visit, Prime Minister will participate in the 21st ASEAN-India Summit and the 19th East Asia Summit. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Laos coincides with the 10th anniversary of India's Act East policy, highlighting the significance of relations with ASEAN as a cornerstone of India's regional strategy and its Indo-Pacific vision. ASEAN-India Summit aims to evaluate the progress made in India-ASEAN relations under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership and to establish future cooperation directions. The meeting will also see participation from countries including Australia. Meanwhile, China, who is Myanmar's neighbour and key ally, also confirmed on Tuesday that Premier Li Keqiang would also attend the summit. The South China Sea will be another key topic for leaders after months of violent confrontations between Chinese and Philippine vessels in the disputed waterway. T20 Repertoire, DD India.
Lao PDR is the current chair of ASEAN, and the visit gains more significance with India marking a decade of its Act East policy. DD India speaks to Ambassador of India to Lao PDR, Prasar Bharati, for more on the upcoming visit.
The invitation of Prime Minister of Laos, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Vientiane on 10th and 11th of October. He will be participating in the 21st ASEAN-India Summit as well as in the East Asia Summit. We are joined in by Ambassador Prasar Bharati, who is the Ambassador of India to Lao PDR. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to DD India. Sir, when we are actually awaiting the arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the 21st ASEAN-India Summit, what sectors will be discussed? What's on the table?
This is going to be a landmark visit because we are celebrating 10 years of India's Act East policy. So the implementation of our Act East policy over the past 1 decade has really strengthened our collaboration with not only ASEAN but with the greater Indo-Pacific region as well. ASEAN remains the core pillar of our engagement with the wider Indo-Pacific. And we have built this engagement on several elements. If I talk of connectivity, for example, our connectivity in multiple dimensions with ASEAN has grown in leaps and bounds. If you look at connectivity by air or by sea, if you look at the number of tourists coming from India to ASEAN and vice versa, if you look at the number of ASEAN tourists going to India for Buddhism and other pilgrimage sites, they have grown in leaps and bounds. If you look at connectivity in other spheres, trade connectivity, or if you look at digital connectivity, people-to-people contacts, so these have all grown multifold. If you look at India's position as a first responder when natural disasters happen, we also launched Operation Sadbhav, in which we delivered emergency relief supplies to Myanmar, to Lao PDR, and also to Vietnam. In fact, Prime Minister of Lao PDR has just thanked Prime Minister Modi for very prompt action by India, which helped a number of Lao people in distress after Typhoon Yagi. So these have been, some of the new areas which have emerged in our cooperation. We have a civilizational connect with this region, which I think the Prime Minister's visit is going to, reinforce and strengthen in many ways. If I talk of Lao PDR, of course, we look forward to welcome the Prime Minister here in traditional Lao and Indian ways. He is going to have, substantive exchanges, and we look forward to his engagements here.
So much, sir, for talking to us. So here we had the ambassador of India to Lao PDR speak to us on the Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Vientiane for the 21st ASEAN-India Summit as well as the East Asia Summit. We definitely do see that the outreach to Southeast Asia has accelerated in the past few months, as we can say. Besides that, also when we actually see that the cultural linkages are going stronger than ever. With camera person Mohit Joshi, this is Meghna Dey for DD India from Vientiane, Laos.
And a wave of celebrations is sweeping across Haryana as the BJP won a historic hat-trick in the state. Party workers were seen jumping for joy. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj sent us this report when the BJP had crossed the halfway mark, catching the overall sentiment.
Excitement, excitement, excitement. And why not? I am in the CM Haryana house today. And, the sweets are being offered to people already because the Bharatiya Janata Party is all set to form its government for the third consecutive time in the state.
Vibrant celebrations have erupted across the state, with BJP supporters bursting into dance and jubilation as the party is all set to form government after the third consecutive win in Haryana.
ये कालका के लोगों की जीत है और मैं उनको बधाई देना चाहती हूँ। ये चुनाव उन्होंने खुद लड़ा है और उन्हीं की जीत हुई है। देखिए जनता है, सोच समझ के जवाब देती है।
The counting process, which started early at 8 a.m. on October 8, following the October 5 elections, has been a closely watched affair throughout the day.
बहुत ज़्यादा निराशा हुई है। आप सब वर्कर्स को देखिए, इतने समय से ये लगे हुए थे। ऐसे समय में जब कोई खड़ा होता नहीं नज़र आता था, राहुल जी का संदेश लेकर हम गांव-गांव ठंड में, कड़ाके की ठंड में, कड़कती धूप में, सब जगह हमारे वर्कर फैले संदेश लेकर गए, मेहनत की ज़मीन पर। लेकिन आज जब ऐसा नतीजा आता है, इनकी मेहनत पर, इनके पसीने पर, इनके खून पर पानी फिरा है।
With both BJP and Congress locked in a fierce battle, the contest remained neck and neck well into the evening, before the BJP managed to solidify its lead. No party has ever secured a hat-trick in Haryana, and BJP is setting new records with this.
Well, next on cards is party meeting and all the discussions that will be unfolding, and also the date on which the swearing-in ceremony will be decided. With camera person Ramakant, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj reporting for DD India in Chandigarh.
Well, the first assembly elections in J&K after 10 years and 5 years following the revoking of Article 370 have handed the region's reign to the JKNC and Congress alliance. The JK National Conference has said its VP and former Chief Minister will return to the Chief Minister's chair, but coalition partner Congress, despite having fared much worse in these elections compared to the one in 2014, has said the high commands of the two parties will decide on government formation after mutual consultation. Well, the Reserve Bank of India will announce the decisions taken during its monetary policy meeting. The meeting concludes today, as it is to be seen whether the central bank keeps the repo rate unchanged as it has for the last 9 consecutive meetings. The repo rate is currently at 6.50%. It has remained steady since the RBI adopted a conscious stance to balance inflation control and growth. The meeting also comes at a time when the US Federal Reserve announced a steep 50 basis points interest cut in its review meeting after holding interest rates steady for 8 straight meetings. External factors like the rising global crude oil prices and tensions in West Asia may compel the RBI to reconsider its current stance. And in sports, Australia defeated New Zealand on Tuesday evening with a dominant bowling display to move top of Group A at the Women's T20 World Cup. Both sides had won their opening match, and the Kiwis had a glimmer of hope on a slow pitch in Sharjah after they restricted Australia to 148 for 8. Both Mooney's 40 provided the backbones of Australia's total, while Elise Perry chipped in with 30 as New Zealand leg spinner Amelia Kerr took on an impressive 426. However, during batting, Susie Bates was bowled by Sophie Monoliux that started the rot for the White Ferns, who lost 9 wickets for 34 runs. Australia are now at the top of Group A with 4 points, while New Zealand 2 points behind in third. Australia will next face Pakistan in Dubai on Friday, with New Zealand playing Sri Lanka in Sharjah on Saturday. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.